Montana is officially the first state to enact a complete ban on TikTok. Governor Greg Gianforte signed the legislation into law yesterday. It is more sweeping than other TikTok bans effective in more than half of the United States, like Utah and Arkansas. Most of those laws only require that children get parental consent before they use TikTok. Montana's measure is set to take effect next January, but legal challenges are almost certain to come before that. Minutes ago, I spoke with Kara Swisher, host of Pivot and On with Kara Swisher, both podcasts, and she's an expert on all things tech. Last night, she tweeted this: "This goofball TikTok ban move by the governor of Montana is about as dopey as virtue signaling gets." Well, I asked her why she thought the Montana ban was a goofball move.
Because it's the state of Montana doing it. They have no business being involved here. This is a national security issue, which means national. And of course, a lot of federal officials are looking at this, as they should. I wrote about it 4 years ago that they should. But when states like Montana do this virtue signaling, of which they have no impact, it really creates a problem for actually doing this in a legal way. The way this law is written it's unconstitutional. It's virtue signaling. It's done in order to, get votes, I guess. I don't know, or to make a press release, or I'm not sure what he's doing. And he has no effect. And so it gets away in the serious efforts to try to cope with this issue of a Chinese company which many people think have ties to the Chinese Communist Party, figuring out what to do about it if there's anything to do, and they need proof, and they need federal laws, and they have to look at it from a foreign ownership perspective. But Montana has almost nothing to do with this.
I'm not even sure how would this even work. I mean, how do you cross state lines and have all of a sudden TikTok banned?
It doesn't work. You can't. It's like having a privacy bill in every state. I talk about this a lot. There needs to be a federal privacy bill because it makes it confusing for these companies. It creates all kinds of mess, and they're not going to enforce it. They could try to enforce it, but they're going to be sued back to last Sunday.
Well, speaking of court scrutiny, today the Supreme Court issued a ruling siding with Twitter. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote, "It might be that bad. It might be that bad actors like ISIS are able to use platforms for illegal and sometimes terrible ends. But," he says, "the same could be said for cell phones or email."
Ink or things like that.
Is he right?
Yes, he is, because we have Section 230 that protects these companies from immunity, and the Supreme Court, you could see it in their questions. And we had said this on our show Pivot, that they were not going to rule on this. They were going to either move it down to the court or reject it. It was a unanimous decision, and it should be. It's not up to the Supreme Court to decide this. It's up to Congress to pass laws or to take Section 230, which gives broad immunity to these sites, to change it or to get rid of it or whatever they want to do, but they have to do something, and it's not up to the justices to make these decisions. They rule on current law, and current law says that these companies are protected, and therefore they are.
But as you said, Section 230 shields them from being responsible for content. What about the algorithms that feed ISIS fundraising content and recruitment videos to people?
I get it. Congress should pass laws about this. But again, this is not up to the Supreme Court to make law, and I think they're correct. And I think even the liberal and the conservative justices agree. They can't make law. They can only determine whether the law is being followed.
Big tech is pouring billions of dollars into AI while practically begging Congress yesterday, for regulation. I mean, that's kind of a first. It's striking to me, at least when it comes to AI, how uneasy so many feel about its evolution.
Well, here's an opportunity to actually get ahead of the problem, with AI. Now, they have begged for regulation. Mark Zuckerberg and others, Sundar Pichai, who runs Google. They've all had a quote, Sheryl Sandberg, who worked at Facebook. They all begged for a regulation, but then they spent a lot of money stopping it, or spending. At one point, I think, for a number of bills for Senator Klobuchar, they spent $110 million to stop her. That's a lot of money. And so there's lobbying against it. There's lobbying against the FTC. Lena Khan, who's trying to do some stuff. There's lobbying against what the Justice Department is doing. In this case, I do think especially Sam Altman from OpenAI, are very genuine about their need for this because they are not protected by Section 230. AI is not protected. And so from what most people say, and it's certainly there's no First Amendment issues. There's a lot of copyright issues. There's a lot of other issues, but they're certainly liable for a lot of stuff that happens with AI. So they're going to be more careful because if you have a lawyer possibly hanging over your head, you're going to think twice. But tech companies don't have to.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.